You know, when I open up these videos, I often declare that something is my favorite. It's something I do a lot. It's very clear why. The point of this channel is an outlet for me to gush about something I'm currently obsessed with. Now, my current subject today hits two of my personal passions. First one is anything that really touches on history or alt history. I eat that shit up. I adore it so much. Historical playgrounds are really just messing around in anything, just twisting it in some weird way, is my jam. The second one, this is the real kicker, the one that sells me on literally anything. Heavy religious themes. You toss in really overt Christian imagery in literally anything, I'm there. It's one of the main reasons I got into Warhammer 40k, the super heavy Catholic imagery in the Imperium of Man. My favorite graphic novel series literally ever is Preacher, something every single one of my friends will back up. I obsess over demon shit. Demon summoning in video games, anything just with a flavor of it in my tabletop games, I'm probably gonna play it. And so, when you mix those two together, what do you get? You get a game known as Trench Crusade, and its absolute bare bones idea. It is World War I with demons. It's the Crusades never ended. The apocalypse is here, like the biblical apocalypse. Christians and demons are fighting. However, it is no man's land, trench warfare, with the actual forces of hell itself, with probably the most insane demon in just designs I've ever seen. It's the sickest thing ever. It's an upcoming project for a war game, and I need to gush about it or else I'm going to explode.
Thank you to all my channel members for making these videos possible, and a special shout out to Christian Voorhees for subscribing at the highest level. This level of support truly helps the channel, so it is greatly appreciated.
Now, what exactly is a Trench Crusade, you might be asking? Well, like I mentioned, it is World War I with demons. And it is probably one of the coolest looking things I've ever seen. It is also soon to be a tabletop war game that you'll be able to play. It will have a Kickstarter down the line, and currently everything I am working off of comes out of a playtest that was all released. The art for this game is absolutely phenomenal. The one that really hooked me is the fact that all the demons and the followers is like if you took the Nurgle shit from Warhammer 40k and made it grosser, somehow. I thought we had it rough in Warhammer, gotta be real. They were holding back.
Yo, so I caught a problem in post, and I want to quickly swing in before I make a fool of myself. The person who created all of the art you're going to be seeing is Mike Franchina. I just gotta say, fantastic job, an absolutely beautiful job. I love his art style so much. And so I'm going to link all of his socials down below alongside all the Trench Crusade stuff. And so you should definitely go follow him on literally whatever you use.
But what exactly is the lore? Why did this all start? Why are there demons and stuff now? Well, it all stems back to the Crusades, specifically the First Crusade in 1099. Down when the Crusaders were sieging the city of Jerusalem. Now, when the Crusaders broke into the city, they found some secret vaults. This vault had artifacts, dark, evil, satanic artifacts locked away by the city's current Islamic occupants. Now, these Crusaders saw all this and were like, damn, those are pretty fun. What if I started messing with them? And the artifacts started calling out, offering power and all sorts of other dark temptations, to where they immediately knelt down and started worshiping their new master. Their new master being Satan. This is known as the First Heresy. Through all of this, these Crusaders began to consort with these demons, to where they started pouring out of Jerusalem itself. The city of Jerusalem became a literal gateway to hell itself, to where the armies began to roll out and take over everything. There was a main issue. The demonic armies and the main demons themselves can't really leave hell. They actually have to get humans and mortals to do the work for them. They did find some pretty easy effort in corrupting people and finding some people that were very willing to jump ship to the side of evil, the side of Satan, but through a lot of hard work, a lot of real pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, the demon heretical armies took over a lot of land. Like, they really crushed back. The Christians and the Muslims, they got pushed out of the Levant. A lot of cities got destroyed. It is bad. And this war has been waging on for 800 years. And now it is the year of our Lord 1914, where we have all this new fancy tech. The war is still raging on. Literally, the biblical apocalypse is here. The gates of hell are still open, and the human forces are doing their best to fight back. These factions have been warped and changed over the years, and are now hyper-religious for a lot of different reasons, and are very, very different from what we have today. As you can see, the landscapes are very changed from having demons rolling through them. We have massive, religious iconography everywhere. The factions that are actually rolling through them are very different, as we have the Christian forces, which range from basically Knight Templars who use guns to roving wild bands of insane, religious converts who sometimes strap bombs to prisoners and throw them at the enemies. The current remnants of the Ottoman Empire, which is so cool. I will talk about them later. I love them. And much more. So I think the best way I can actually break down the history of what we have currently and what is in the game is by breaking down faction by faction, which will break down basically the tech that is currently occupying, what has happened in the interim 800 years since the first heresy, and some other fun facts in between, just breaking it up piece by piece. I will introduce them in order of the playtest, and this is also the other reason I'm doing this, because a real important aspect of this kind of video and of playtest is if you're going to get into this game and support the Kickstarter that's going to come out, you gotta determine what faction you're gonna be repping. Say in the comments what faction you're gonna play. So first up, we're gonna talk about the Heretic legions. These are the main fighting force of the satanic armies. The demons can't actually leave hell, so they have to get mortals to actually do the work for them. The way they do this and recruit them is they gather up all these people, willing or not, and they make them literally march into hell to prove themselves. Now, this isn't something that's easy, because, shocker, surprise, hell is pretty hostile to be in. It kinda sucks. It's not a question of if you survive. It's a question of how long you survive. Because the more wicked you are, and the more evil and dark your soul is going to determine how far you go, as well as just how, strong you are, both willpower and physically. As well, it is important to mention a thing about this procedure. The actual procedure of marching your way into hell and proving yourself is literally spiritually considered committing suicide with what you're doing. However, it's important to mention committing suicide is a sin in Christianity, which in hell is a virtue. So don't worry, they look up to that. They're actually pretty down with that. Now, based on how far you get is going to get determined what kind of unit you can become. Pretty on average, a guy can become, a chorister, where your head falls off and splits into many different places. Just a whole different spot where you hold your head out and it sings hymns of the damned and scares everyone. Horrifying. Or you could become a death commando. These guys are really fun. They wear special helmets that completely blocks their existence from the gaze of God himself. I also adore the werewolf, which is pretty used on a lot of just front-facing material. This is a giant metallic werewolf, basically, just a huge thing that rips and tears through literally anything, mainly barbed wire. They send it out through no man's land just to rip a hole, and then everyone else goes through. It's straight up just blitzkrieg tactics. That's all this thing does. And my favorite unit of all of the Heretic legions is the artillery witch. Because why in the world would you use a cannon when instead you can get this weird mute lady who concerningly never speaks, may or may not be human-ish, we don't know. They don't know anything about what they are. So, she opens a portal to the assembly lines of hell, literally takes a bomb fresh off the conveyor belt, and just telekinetically lobs a missile at somebody. I love them so much. They're so fun. And then we got to move on to the Christian forces. Now, like I mentioned, there are multiple flavors of this. The Trench Pilgrims are a little bit more of the unhinged flavor of Christianity. So Trench Pilgrims are a ragtag group of pilgrims that have all made their way and banded together for some form of fashion for some reason. They're out in no man's land fighting. Mainly, they're gathered around one key figure and following them into war. Been given some divine message to go wage war. Maybe they're a bunch of sinners who want to redeem themselves before they die so they can go to heaven. Maybe they're prisoners and this is the way that they can just get freedom, such and such and so on and so on. There are many different reasons. So they come in so many different fun flavors. Like I mentioned earlier, there are literally prisoners they strap bombs to. That's a thing they do. Another one that's very front-facing for the art is the Castigators, which are very similar to Commissars from 40k. And yes, they do have a shield with a lot of hands stapled to it. Full-on crucifix kind of vibes here. Their entire thing is full-on keep spiritual morale high. But in like the, I'm gonna keep the spiritual morale high in the whipping you style. And they're mostly followed by these dudes known as communicants, which are giant hulking behemoths wielding weapons that are way too big, with muscles that are bulging and unhuman, and they heal of wounds just way too quickly. They have crosses like nailed to their eyeballs, and they're like this because they went through this sacrament where they consumed the flesh and blood of what is known as a Metachrist. Now, what is a Metachrist, you might be asking? Well, you know your sacrament, right? You're in church, you partake of the bread, you partake of the water or wine. I've taken sacrament, we use little cups of water. I never used wine or grape juice. I know it happens in some churches. But what if you had a clone of Jesus Christ himself? And this clone of Jesus Christ couldn't speak because he was in perpetual pain, but he was quoted by the priest as gurgling, partake of my flesh and partake of my blood. Only the priest can really understand him, but that's what he's saying. And this Metachrist has been cloned multiple times. In the book it is quoted, we have a number 1, 3, and 7, and when you partake of the flesh and blood, you are mutated into a lot of different things. Infused with this divine power, you can also be brought back from the dead. Trench Pilgrims are sometimes revived by the Metachrist because they're so divine and perfect in some way, or that he sees potential. There's a lot going on here, I gotta be real. I wish it went into more detail because, God, I want to unpack the Metachrist. The Iron Sultanate is my favorite faction of this game. I love their design so much. The Iron Sultanate is the remnants of the Ottoman Empire, and mainly they are the conglomerate of all of the Muslims in the area. Just Asia, Africa, Middle East. It is a giant conglomeration under one banner because it was pretty bad. The portal to hell opened up right in Jerusalem in a very central key point in there. The Christians had it easy because at least Europe, there's some distance. I gotta be real. Jerusalem's in the Middle East, so a little rough. So they retreated and they created their own city. The city known as it's a long name, the Invincible Iron Wall of Two Great Horns that Pierce the Sky. This city is the city they founded and is perfectly defended and is something they keep defended as best they can, despite the forces of hell literally constantly sending people to go try to breach the defenses. It is a daily occurrence that things are sent out to fight, and the defenders of this city are killed in the process of defending it. In the moments they do actually leave this city, it's not super rare. They have to on occasion. Mainly they're masters of hit and run and going out in these little squads for the Sultan, where they have like a key commander figure and then these very quick strike squads that go out and do a bunch of stuff. They have a lot of fun units like everybody. Like masters of alchemy who decide, we're stuck inside all day. What if we mastered the art of alchemy and use this by creating poisons, bombs, and big scary monsters? Just make mutagens and stuff. So supremely based. Then you also have assassins who use the powers of mass hallucinogens and literal temporal powers to slip behind you and stab you in the throat. I love them so much. Their design is so sick. But this is my favorite, and I love them so much, and I really like that the playtest rules gives me an alternate warband that is purely built around the assassins. And geez, oh geez, my oh my, why possibly would Glue Boy like the assassin units? I wonder if there's a famed video game series that is very alt history that is based on the exact same historical assassin group, the exact same Muslim assassin group, which I actually found out through this video is a real place. Like this is actually whole Masyaf assassin thing. That's a real thing in history. That was kind of fun. So yes, I will be making an Assassin's Creed inspired Treacher Crusade list at some point in the future, and I'm very excited to do so. As well, it really doesn't help that my first game I ever played in the series was Assassin's Creed Revelations, which takes place in Constantinople. The Principality of New Antioch is what you get if you ask, can I get a bunch of Christians that are a little more reined in, just a little more normal, please? These are basically Knights Templar, but using guns. They're heavily armored in very World War I militia, and honestly also very cool. Now, the Principality of New Antioch got their start because you might be asking, what happened to Old Antioch? Well, in 1595 it got destroyed. I think it could be misconstrued here when I say that it was destroyed. I don't mean it was conquered. I don't mean it was annexed. I mean it was literally exploded, wiped off the map. It's gone. It isn't there anymore. A weird new mysterious hell weapon was created, and they can't find it. It's gone too, and New Antioch is here now, currently led by a guy named Duke Constantine, who doing his absolute damnedest to lead when there's a lot of different disparate groups leading it on their own war bands, because it's actually mentioned Principality of New Antioch has a lot of infighting, a whole lot. It's a war game, so you have to have, the lore so they can fight each other. It's a thing. But one of the main methods of tech that the Principality has is these helmets that allow them to gain insight to God, the voice of God himself. Now, my favorite version of this is the sniper unit you can get. Now, the sniper unit wears one of these to gain insight from the voice of God. There's a downside when it comes to this whole insight thing. You can't sleep no more because you're hearing divine voices constantly. Keeps you up literally forever. You just can't sleep. So you're kept awake and stimulated through a vast cocktail of drugs and stimulants, but it lets you do a lot of really insane martial maneuvers because, God's telling you, there's a guy right behind you about to stab you, spin around and do something cool. God's your bro, he's helping you out. There's a lore blurb for the sniper unit where it talks about how one of these guys domed a heretic from 3 miles away, which is sick. Thanks God. What a guy. Other than that, there's a lot of just heavily armored guys with guns. And another fantastic bit, the medical units in this are so fun because it mentions, just for the fact that this war is so horrific, the medics had to change the Hippocratic Oath. It has been altered. The medics, they can do harm now. It's allowed. Now, the Cult of the Black Grail is the main followers of the actual demons that we see. These are the followers of the 7th Circle of Hell, the Lord of the Flies, Beelzebub. Now, demons can't directly do a lot outside of hell. They can influence things, they can communicate. Beelzebub can do a little bit more. The main method he does it is through a little thing known as the Black Grail. What is the Black Grail? Well, it is a giant mass wave of pox and pestilence, disease, and bugs that fly through an area. It is a horrific event. It is a time where people lock up in their homes and hope and pray that it doesn't get them. It's pretty bad. Beelzebub hates all living things. He wants everything alive to be destroyed completely. It's pretty weird to hear that and be like, that's my boy. I want to join him. Some people do though. There are some people with absolute dark pits in their soul that are like, yeah, hell yeah. And during the Black Grail, there are some who do step outside and fully embrace when it rolls through. Those people, if they truly in their soul have that there, they become Plague Knights and have the most sickest. The armor design is so good. But the rest of the units you actually see, oh my god, they're nasty. Like bulbous fly monsters, these parasitic dogs that rampage through no man's land, just infecting and drinking people. The most, the Lord of Tumors is, it speaks for itself, first of all. Yes, that guy is drinking a bowl of pus. He's doing that. It's, Nurgle could never. I don't think I'd ever say that in my life. But yeah, that is Trench Crusade. That's the game. There's not a lot of lore. It's being released in little tidbits on Twitter. The bits we have are in their playtest that you can find on their site. Everything that you can get for Trench Crusade will be linked in the description. You really should check it out. And honestly, when the game does release anything, I am going to be part of the Kickstarter. If there's a lot more that comes out, I'm probably going to cover at least a bit of it, because I'm looking for Wargame alternatives. So I'm down. This game is sick. I really love the vibe. I would love to paint up some models. So yeah, if you like this, like, comment, subscribe, do that stuff, join my membership, and see ya.